Welcome to Lawyers Coach. My name is Oliver Hansard, and each episode of this podcast will feature myself or Claire Rayson, both of us coaches and former lawyers, trying to find out what makes lawyers tick. We'll be hearing from various guests and experts, and then at the end of each episode, we will both be reflecting on what they said. In this episode, Claire Rayson talks to James Lewindon, Head of Legal Resourcing at Konexo, a division of Evershed Sutherland. Claire starts by asking James to talk through his role.
I work for Konexo, which is Evershed Sutherland's alternative legal service provider. And my role is I head up the legal resourcing part of that business. So that's providing lawyers, consultants to clients and to the firm itself, but includes project managers and paralegals and business analysts. And I've been working in this role for the last 10 years when we started it back in 2011 when it was called Evershed's Agile, and now it's Konexo. So my role is to basically make sure we get the right kind of people coming through to work with us, and then with the team place them into supporting our clients on interim projects and support.
And you mentioned kind of consultants there and lawyers, and the series has looked at success, and I think consultancy as a model has really kind of challenged that notion of success in firms. And I think it used to be that you were either a partner or and that was success. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's been really interesting seeing the development of what success or what defines success in law. So just a bit of background, I'm not a lawyer. I came into working for Evershed Sutherland as a management consultant back in 2011. And we looked at, I suppose, the market. And at that time, still, success was either reaching the top in a private practice law firm or reaching general counsel in an in-house setting, which meant there was a huge amount of people who maybe didn't want that for themselves, maybe the inflexibility of those two structures, or the diversity of work that wasn't there in those two structures meant that there was a huge amount of people that just didn't have mechanisms for them to define what success meant for themselves. And one of the pleasing things is over the last 9-10 years, there's been a real explosion in different models and different ways of working for lawyers to, I suppose, redefine what they deem as success, which has really challenged law firms and challenged in-house teams about how they need to be more flexible. They need to have structures in place for taking care of people who have maybe different ambitions than reaching partner or reaching general counsel. I can remember when I first joined the law firm, there was a narrow cultural perspective about what success meant for a lawyer. It was that, I suppose, I grew up watching LA Law and all of those things where it was reaching a partner was the be all and end all. And I think now lots of different people are working in lots of different ways within the legal profession. It's breaking down that perception and hopefully giving more people courage to redefine success for themselves.
One of the people we spoke to this series was a lawyer called Eloise Skinner, and we spoke very much around the idea of this external success and how often that can kind of lead to you feeling very empty, and how she believes that success is thinking about your values and making sure that you're kind of aligned with those. Do you think that the different paths that lawyers are now taking, so consulting is obviously one of those, is kind of an example of that, lawyers thinking, well, actually, what do I want to do, and how can I reshape my career?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of drivers for it. Some of those are the values of what they want to achieve personally, whether that's starting a business or pursuing other interests, archaeology or writing a book or whatever that looks like. But also the values in terms of the kind of organizations that people want to work for. And within the consultant market, you're able to, I suppose, have a bit more freedom about picking and choosing the kind of organizations you want to support, and perhaps taking on non-exec director type roles, or doing volunteering, where I suppose the traditional structures a number of years ago didn't allow that kind of freedom. And I think that if anything, more people speaking about how they are redefining what success looks like for them in terms of the values and acting as role models, it gives impetus and role models to those who, I suppose, grew up, university, law school, training contract, law firm, where almost that perception of success was defined for them. And the more role models who speak about redefining success for themselves, the more that people may be able to embrace that kind of change, because it is scary. It is kind of scary moving from quite a structured career path to one that is unstructured, that you need to take more responsibility and control over, but which gives you more freedom to pursue and align with the values that you hold dear to yourself.
We haven't mentioned clients, and I think some of the models haven't just kind of arisen because of lawyer demand, they've arisen because of client demand too. How do you think clients are responding to the change, and do you think it's a welcome change for clients?
I mean, I think clients moved quicker than law firms, I think, to embrace that kind of change. I think because of the way that in-house teams were looking to bring in support, meant that law firms had to adapt really quickly. When we started back in 2011, there was us, Lawyers on Demand and Axiom, and now pretty much every other law firm has got their own kind of model or version. And then there is a whole host of other kind of structures where you've got people like Gunnar Cook or Carbon Law or Keystone. And I think the ways that general counsel or in-house legal teams have looked to differentiate work and segment work has meant that those segments of work are able to be distributed differently, rather than the kind of traditional model of it either gets done in-house by the in-house legal team or it gets thrown over to a private practice law firm. There's lots of different ways of doing lots of different legal work, and because of that segmentation, it's allowed different models and therefore people to be able to work in different ways to meet those models and meet those different in-house client demands. So it has been, I think, client-led, which is great, because basically if clients stamp their feet and want change, law firms follow.
I think Konexo is a good example because it sits as part of Eversheds but outside of Eversheds. What's the reasoning for that?
In terms of the history of it, when we started, it was the first, Eversheds Consulting, Eversheds Agile, they were fully part of the law firm, and we still are. Konexo is still 100% part of the law firm. It's not a subsidiary, it's not a spin-off. And when we started it was to give a different service to clients who were comfortable in asking the law firm for quite traditional work, but were also asking for services that traditional law firms couldn't offer. And I think when we renamed and brought together some of the, I suppose, project management consulting, technology, people type services that Evershed Sutherland had under the one Konexo umbrella, it was to, I suppose, redefine for clients that there are lots of different ways of undertaking legal work and getting work done that was slightly different to what they might perceive of a traditional law firm. So while Evershed Sutherland still does great work in terms of its, I suppose, the more defined traditional legal work, clients can also come directly to to Konexo and say, well, there's these bits of work that I need doing that are slightly different and may need a different approach, which is where an alternative legal service provider type model might work.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because actually, if you look at the big four, it's certainly the model that they've adopted. And I think you'd be hard pushed to call PwC an accountancy firm anymore, because it just does so much outside. And it'd be interesting to see, whether how law responds, and I suspect it will end up in a similar place.
Yeah, that's it. That's a really good example. I think long gone are the days where you looked at Deloitte and went, oh yeah, they're an audit firm. You mentioning the big four is it's a good model of showing disruption in the legal profession, but also it shows that clients are looking for the kind of suite of services and ways of working that law firms have traditionally not offered, but are now kind of, I suppose, racing to play catch up.
And I guess also, kind of going back to the central theme of success, also then challenges what success looks like in a law firm, because it's no longer just the lawyers that are delivering those solutions. It's again, thinking about earlier on in the series, we're talking to Sarah Hawes, who's at Herbert Smith Freehills, and she was saying very much now it's kind of legal services and our people, which includes yes, the lawyers, but also the business developers, the project managers, and all those other pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big growth areas in the legal profession has been and I hate this term, non-lawyer, I suppose, services. And I think that the growth in specialists in legal technology and legal project management and legal business analysts, and those who are able to straddle, I suppose, I call them kind of translators. What they're able to do is translate the complex language of law into potentially the complex language of technology. And those people who are able to have one foot in both of those areas and translate the different requirements are really rare. And I think that growth in those people who may not have looked at law as a career for themselves, or may looked at law as quite barriered to them, because it was, again, going back to what we said, it was lawyers becoming partners was the definition of success. So there was almost a barrier to people thinking they could work in the legal profession, whereas now there is a huge demand for people with different skills who will add into the different kind of services that we're talking about, like project managers and working on technology platforms for legal, and clients looking to bring in different skills to meet all of those different requirements that they're challenged with in terms of regulatory change or doing legal work differently, which brings with it the impact of the big four and the way that they bring in different specialists for different requirements. And I think it helps, because what it does mean is that lawyers who can really get into working with the business, and they can really, I suppose, concentrate on the law, knowing that there are specialists who are better than they are at project management and Excel spreadsheets potentially, and all of those things that I suppose the lawyer, what does good look like for a lawyer now? It isn't just doing law. It's I suppose a lot more project management type work and a lot more understanding of the business that makes it more interesting, but is also quite challenging.
And I guess it's that change between thinking that you can do it all, which I know, I used to be a lawyer, but that challenge from kind of thinking you can do it all to recognizing that actually, a big part of my job is project management, and actually perhaps what I need is a project manager, rather than trying to teach myself the basics of project management to do it myself.
Yeah, and I think that the impact of the big four who bring in specialists for specialist roles. I think the realization and the pressure from clients to get the best person working on the right kind of work. Is the right person working on the right kind of work at the right time for the right price. And potentially, traditionally, 10 years ago, it would be expected that lawyers would do the lawyering, do the project management, do the working on through a technology platform, which may have just been Excel back 10 years ago. And it was expected the lawyers would have to do all of that. And I think actually now the challenge is for law firms to structure how they support clients with the right kind of people, with the right kind of talent, doing that right kind of work. And it means that it maybe potentially frees up lawyers to work on higher value, more interesting strategic legal work, rather than getting potentially lost trying to find the 15th tab on an Excel spreadsheet when there are lots of other people who know how to use that. Those who embrace that, I think, really push on and succeed in where they want to go, I suppose, where they want to achieve. Those who resist it are going to be challenged and left behind, I think.
And I wonder how much that also comes down to the pricing, because I think, for me, the billable hour is the root cause often of so many things that are wrong inside traditional firms. And I wonder whether that sense of traditionally we bill out at, whatever it is per hour, and it's the lawyer that does the billing and everyone else supports us in that process. But changing it to thinking about, okay, well, what value are we giving to our clients, and how do we price that value, and actually how do we deliver that value? And that might not just be delivery through lawyers.
Yeah, I think the billable hour is that you could, that's a Pandora's box that who could spend a long time. I think it absolutely has its place, and I think it's not something that is, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the kind of the end of the legal profession. There has been lots written about how the billable hour should be struck off. It shouldn't be used. Whereas actually, I think it has its place for the right, like I said, for the right kind of work, the right kind of way of billing and working through that is hourly rates. But it isn't the right kind of pricing mechanism for different types of work that are being used. Using a technology platform for processing thousands of NDAs, as an example. Well, hourly rates are not the right kind of mechanism for that. But I think both law firms and clients have a responsibility for changing and working together on what kind of work is the right work to be priced in the right way. It's not for clients to say, I want this done differently. It's for law firms and clients to work collaboratively, saying, okay, this is the work that needs to be done. What is the best way of doing it? Is it hourly rate work for the law firm? Is it bringing consultants in to support you on either flexible hourly rate or day rate or whatever that looks like? Or is it a fixed fee because it's high volume and we can guarantee X number of contracts per year or whatever that looks like? That change in pricing structures has been positive because it gets law firms and clients talking to each other more about what they actually both want to achieve, and clients recognizing that law firms do need to make money, and law firms recognizing that clients need to show and demonstrate value to the business.
What do you think that this year will have done for the future? Do you think that lawyers and traditional firms in particular will be looking at their models again and thinking about what next?
Yeah, I think that the two things that we've seen grow significantly quickly, the first has been the challenge of location and the fact that it isn't a challenge anymore. Even within client teams, there was that perception of, I need someone sat at a desk or work, someone sat in an office 5 days a week or 4 days a week, which meant that those client teams may only be able to get the right kind of people to support them who were living or were able to travel to that location. Well, so if you take location out of the equation, which the current circumstances has done because everyone is now working remotely, what it means is that clients are able to access a much more varied and diverse talent pool of people who may be much more suited to what they're looking for. What we've seen is a real challenge from clients saying, I need the right kind of skills. I don't care where they are, and I don't care what country they're in. As long as they can support me and my business, then that's the most important thing, which has been brilliant because it's meant that people who may have, I suppose, defined success for themselves in living in a certain country or living in a place that may have actually meant that success for them cut off a portion of access to work that they accepted because that was part of what they wanted for themselves, now find that they were able to offer services and offer work, and because of the fact that everyone's now working remotely. And then secondly, clients are looking much more flexibly in terms of the kind of support they need for their in-house teams. Whereas I suppose it got into a process of a client would say, I need someone 5 days a week to sit in the office and do this work. What they realize is that for some work, it might be, I need someone for 15 hours a week. It's not work that I want to send out to a private practice law firm. It's kind of in-house work, but I can't guarantee what the levels of work are going to be like. So it might be 15 hours one week, it might be 10 the next. So what that's given growth to is again, there's a great talent pool of people out there who want to work in that really ad hoc kind of flexible way. I suppose work around what else they're doing, and this way of working gives them access to that. that growth in clients' demand, asking for that because of the situation that we're in, means I think for the future, it's incredibly exciting for people to again redefine what success looks like for themselves.
And which firms do you think are going to be best placed to leverage that?
Those who are able to embrace change quickly are those who are going to be set up for success in the future, because even this time last year, ways of working are completely different to what they were last year, and they will be again next year. I think the pace of the change over the last 18 months and what the next 18 months will be like, I don't know that I'm ever going to sit back and go, right, great, I'm now in the new normal. I can have a breather for 10 minutes, because I just don't think that's going to happen.
James, I think that's a really nice place to end the conversation, and it's just fascinating to see what's happening, and when we look back in I think even a year's time, we'll be surprised at where we are. Thank you ever so much for talking to me, and I wish you every continued success.
Thank you. And just to say, I think platforms like this and the way you're giving people success stories, and it's great, because it just reinforces that there are lots of different ways for people in the legal profession to work, and the more role models and case studies people hear, the more confidence it gives them. So thank you, and thank you for having me.
So that was Claire Rayson talking to James Lewindon. Claire, there was so much there. What stood out for you during that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think what really stuck out for me was the way that clients and professionals are working together to redefine what success looks like, and also what legal service delivery looks like.
Yeah, he seemed to think that the more agile legal services businesses were, the better chance they had of success as organisations, and perhaps success for the individuals as well.
Yeah, and I think, what's interesting is where we ended that conversation, which is agility is going to be really important looking to the future, and thinking about where people are located now doesn't seem as important as it did, a year ago. And will be interesting to see what that means for the talent pool, what that means for legal services in general.
I also like the point he made about there being an explosion in what success could look like for individuals.
Yeah, and I think that's really been a theme across this series, hasn't it? That I think, the up and out or up and partner roots of the past, are just that, things of the past. And I think there's much more scope these days for people to define their own careers and define what success looks like for them as an individual. And firms are responding to that. So it's, be interesting to see where that goes, whether the boundaries are pushed even further.
Well, particularly as the industry seems to be under so much change, it's almost like there's both a top-down structural change that's forcing all those opportunities, and also the demands of the individuals as well, that they want to, as I think James put it, they want to define their own terms of success.
And I think what's encouraging there is that it's clearly matching with what clients want, because I think expanding out the different paths that individuals can take has provided different offerings for clients. And there was a lot of talk with James around segmentation and around firms now being able to divide up the work that they've got and make sure that they've got the best fit for each individual piece of work. So it's encouraging to see that it's working for clients too.
So that's the end of series 2, Claire. What really jumped out at you during the series?
So the highlight for me, I think, was speaking to Eloise Skinner in episode 3. I think she really defined success well for me. She wasn't talking about the sorts of success that I think most people, when they think of success, think of external success. They think of, doing well in your A levels, getting a first at university. But for her, success was being true to your values. And I think in all the coaching work that I do, that really comes through. I think when people work and are aligned with what their values are, they're so much more successful or happy. And I just think she really hit the nail on the head for me. How about you, Oliver?
I just love the wide range of different experiences and different routes that all our contributors had gone through in their legal careers. Susan Lamb in episode 4, for example, having a fantastic career at Shell and being so passionate, not just about the practice of the law, but in terms of how lawyers are treated. And then there was James Lewindon, who we've just heard from, who is not a lawyer by training and yet is able to have a fascinating career in the legal industry. So that's it. That's the end of series 2. Claire, it's been absolutely fantastic working with you and doing the second series of the Lawyers Coach podcast. We've just got to work out now what series 3 is going to look like.
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. I've really enjoyed it.
Lawyers Coach is brought to you by Client Talk and Hansard Coaching. If you're enjoying this series, please rate us on your podcast provider so that others can find us. If you're a lawyer and would like to take part in Lawyers Coach, please visit our website lawyercoach.co.uk for further details. And you can also join the conversation on our LinkedIn group Lawyers Coach. If there are any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, then just get in touch.